edition of Black Knight News. I am Mattie Bradley.
And I am Madison Brown. On Saturday, September 21st, the 16th Annual Farmington Marching Invitational will be held by the Band Boosters. The admission will be $6 for adults and $3 for both students and senior citizens. The invitational will begin at 1:55 p.m. All proceeds will go to the Farmington High School band programs.
TSA engineering students have found a unique way to use a 3D printer to aid disabled students. Reporter Justine Simmons has more information.
Farmington High School's TSA engineering students have created a new way to help out others with 3D printers. We asked Eric Johnson, the TSA sponsor, how you designed the 3D printouts.
The process that we go through in designing the 3D printouts, the students create a model on the computer so they can take anything that they want, anything that they're capable of creating and modeling, they can create on the computer, and then they convert that into a file that we can print out on the 3D printer. So we were actually given the idea of doing name stencils last year through some of our teachers who work with students who that would benefit, and they said, how about we make these stencils? So we decided to go ahead and give it a shot, and we came up with a few things that actually worked really well. So it's been a fun process. It's been a great way for students to learn how to help others and apply the engineering skills they're learning in class.
Johnson also told us about how the 3D printers help disabled students independently write their name.
The printouts help the students. Most of the students that they are designed for are visually impaired, or they may have some other disability where they're not able to use their hands as well as most students. So the stencils are used for the student to sit on the piece of paper and trace their name using a pen or pencil to give them a little bit of independence and the ability to do some things that everybody else gets to do. So it helps us to really make the tie between engineering and the real world when you help people.
Mr. Johnson gave us a demonstration of how the 3D printing process worked.
It's just a basic stencil that we started with, just big enough to put the letters on. So it could be any size that we want. We can make it look any way we want it to. So what we'll have Aaron do now is put just a basic name on there. We'll just use the word name. And he's using the text tool to create the text. And plugs the name in. Then he can finish that sketch and go to extrude, which is how we cut. It's kind of like if you had the old Play-Doh toys. You can make a profile and extrude through that shape, through that profile. And now the name is actually cut out in the stencil. Okay, so now we've switched over to our 3D printer. This program is called Replicator G, and we import the file that Aaron created into this program, which shows our build surface, and it's still a 3D model. And what we'll do now is we can position it on the table, and then you can go to generate G code, which is going to create the line-by-line code for the extruder. It's a lot like a CNC program, a computer numerical control. It uses X, Y, and Z coordinates. And I think this simple name tag like this has approximately about 14,000 lines of code that the machine will run through when it's printing.
For Black Knight News, I'm Justine Simmons.
The annual VFW Voice of Democracy audio essay contest will be due Wednesday, October 30th this year. It must be a 3 to 5 minute audio essay with a script and must follow a topic of why a student is optimistic about our nation's future. $30,000 will be awarded in college scholarships. Interested students should contact Stephen Winninger.
The Dine Out for United Way will begin every Thursday from September 5th to November 21st, with next Thursdays at Colton's in Farmington. Future dates can be found on www.nightvision.farmington.k12.mo.us/night service.
September 23rd through the 27th will be Band Books Week in the LMC at Farmington High School. Several teachers at FHS took the time to tell us what Banned Book Week really means to them by telling us about some of the books that had an impact on them.
I believe that we should not ban books at all. I'm a big believer in free speech, freedom of the press, and I feel like it's a very slippery slope if we start banning books. Do I think that books should be available for students? Yes, I do, and I feel like we should not censor what students are allowed to read. They kind of have to censor themselves and decide, what they believe and what they don't believe.
I feel that students should be able to experience life through books. I believe that each student has a different perspective on life and maybe be living through something that's not ordinary or normally what other kids are doing. So I think they can maybe get lost in a book, maybe connect with a book that pertains to their life in some way somehow, and they can relate to the characters in that book and maybe come up with a solution to their own problems, or maybe they just want to get lost in a fantasy in a world that they wish that they lived in. So by reading whatever they want when they want allows them to be open and to broaden their horizon and to basically just have a good time if they don't in the world that they live in.
There are books that I wouldn't want to see banned from a library, in that there should be a copy of it on the shelf. And then there are books that I wouldn't want to see 25 copies of in my English classroom because they can cause problems. I'm a First Amendment guy, I'm a free speech guy, I'm a free press guy, but there are books that cause problems. From the beginning of our literature till now, there are books, and you'll see articles in newspapers every year about public schools where teachers got in trouble because they wanted to be the cool teacher, and they featured something in class that probably shouldn't have been featured in class. And so I don't like to censor what kids want to read, and I don't like to censor what I want to put out in class, but I'm not stupid either. And there are some things that are just better off not being purchased in groups of 300 and say, well, every freshman's going to read this. So the problem with banning books is, where do you end? I don't want the Bible to be banned, but there's a lot of ugliness in the Bible. And there's a lot of ugliness in literature that gets printed. So I pretty much tell the politically correct police out there and the censorship police out there that, the old quote I would refer them to is, the price we pay for freedom of speech is freedom of speech itself. If I want to be able to say what I want to say, I have to put up with the unpleasantness of what I don't want to hear. But that's just the way it is in a free society, and I hope that America stays that course.
One of my favorite novels is a book called The Grapes of Wrath. It's written by a guy named John Steinbeck, and it details the experiences of a family during the Great Depression as they moved through the Dust Bowl headed from Oklahoma to California. And while the historical setting of the novel is important, what I really found meaningful was the sense of humanity that the book gives, both through several different characters. And if I never would have read that book and had the opportunity to teach it to a bunch of students, then there's a certain sense of who I am that I would be missing. And not being able to read that book would certainly have changed where I am today.
I'm really excited about what the library is doing for Banned Book Week this year. I think they have a lot of neat ideas. I think it's going to really get kids interested. And sometimes it's the things that are a little controversial that make high school students read more. And that's the most important thing in the world. Because you can escape sometimes your everyday life just by reading a book. And there are so many books that are on the banned book list that kind of changed my life a little bit. And I would hate for kids not to have that privilege to read those books.
Well, the book that I chose was one called Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. And it was written back in the 1930s, early 1930s, but a lot of the ideas and a lot of the problems are still very much with us. And the reason that that book had an influence on me was a dystopian or sort of a scary view of the future, that in Brave New World, marriage is abolished, people having any sort of meaning behind sexual activity is gone. It's just a promiscuous recreational activity that's encouraged. There's no family structure. Religion has been superseded by secular activities. There's a drug called Soma that people take whenever they are the least bit upset with something or something doesn't happen the way they want it to. So the whole purpose behind Brave New World is to have a happy, non-thinking society. So people certainly wouldn't want to read books that would challenge the order of things or make them think about alternatives. So it's a very powerful book. And I guess in conclusion, what I would say is probably a lot of your viewers have seen 1980 or read 1984 or seen the movie. And that's based on fear. And Huxley felt that society could be controlled by excessive pleasure, that people could take this drug whenever they wanted to, and there were all sorts of amusements to keep them occupied, so nobody really had to think. So I think that that's what impressed me about the book.
So a book that meant something a lot to me was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. This was a book that I read when I was in a really dark place in my life, and if I hadn't read this book, I'm not sure that I could pull myself out of it. It's about this boy in Spain who has this dream that his life's treasure is in a pyramid in Egypt. I have absolutely nothing in common with a shepherd boy in Spain, but for whatever reason, when I read this book, I'm like, I am this boy. Who knew?
This week, Night Gear officially started selling their first ever homecoming shirts. The design on the front is inspired by this year's theme of Pixar. If you would like to order a shirt, visit www.nightvision.farmington.k12.mo.us/nightgear.
Next Monday, ROTC will be hosting a BMX assembly in the gym for freshmen and sophomores. The assembly will take place during 7th hour after attendance. We will have details about the assembly in next week's news.
When we come back from the break, a car and truck show was held by the Walker Johns Childhood Foundation on Saturday.
And St. Paul High School is looking to expand.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your closet. Still no jobs, just more stuff? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
Construction of new apartments may appear next to the high school in the near future. City Council has been working on the plans for over a month as they continue to discuss the land with owner Carl Peterson.
A car and truck show was held this Saturday by the Walker Johns Childhood Cancer Foundation at Sam Sism Ford on Highway 67. The event raised funds to go towards families who have a child with cancer. The event included a $500 prize for a Best in Show and a burnout contest with music and more until 5 o'clock p.m.
St. Paul High School is looking to expand on the size of the building that they are housed in after more students enrolled to the school this year. Initially, only 12 students were estimated to be at the high school, but now more than 26 are enrolled. The school plans to relocate in the old Carpet One building located on Highway 67 on the north side of the town.
Further north, just off of Highway 67, the reconstructed Votech Bridge opened last week. Lines still need to be painted on the bridge and some additional shoulder work is still expected, but the bridge opening should cut a lot of traffic north of Deloge on Highway 67 during the mornings and afternoons.
A week ago, 24 Missourians were arrested on indictments for federal drug and weapon charges in a joint operation between the FBI, the ATF, the DEA, the Highway Patrol, and local authorities in the St. Louis area. The arrests included 7 from the local area that could face between 10 years and life in prison.
For 2014, Six Flags St. Louis is planning to add a tsunami soaker. It will be a teacup-style ride similar to Hannah barrels that used to exist in the park. This new ride will feature water and spinning, and it will allow non-riders to get in on the fun as well.
As we mentioned last week, lawmakers met at the Capitol building last week for a veto session. In total, 8 bill vetoes were overridden, including House Bill 253. House Bill 253 is a tax cut bill that would have taken a substantial amount of money away from the school districts all over the state, according to Governor Jay Nixon. On Tuesday, we talked to the area's representative, Kevin Engler, about his thoughts on the vetoes. First, we asked him about the bill that he sponsored that affects the language in the sexual predators law, and then we got his opinion on House Bill 253.
Well, that bill actually was amended with this bill on it that wasn't mine, but what the purpose was is we have a sexual predator list, and people look at it and they try to see if someone's dangerous in their neighborhood. Well, in reality, there have been people that were put on there when they were minors 20, 30 years ago for statutory rape if they were a junior and were having sex with somebody underage, and they pleaded guilty so that they get probation, or maybe they got caught urinating in public. Those things are now all on the sexual predator, and there's no way to get their name off. So we wanted to look at some attempt to be able to get the people that are truly dangerous to stay on, and the other ones have a method to get off of the list. Now, there was some language in there that needs to be tightened up, so I withdrew the bill so that in January the amendment sponsor could tighten up the language, make sure that we were protected, and make sure that no one that was taken off the list could present a clear and present danger. Sure, it doesn't have any, in my opinion, it doesn't have an impact on education. I think the governor was lying in most of the statements. He used the education as a pawn, which he said he would never do. It withheld money, the money that was already there and budgeted, withheld it to try to hold over people's heads. And in fact, if we don't do something to keep up with Indiana and Tennessee and Kansas and Texas and these other states that are doing things to attract business, if we don't attract more business and make the economic pie bigger, the school districts are going to get less and less and less. So even though the governor got the veto overridden, he hasn't yet made a proposal to stimulate the economy. He says we're doing very well. Ask any county adjoining us, including St. Francis, Washington, Iron, Reynolds, Madison, St. Genevieve. We've all had negative job growth in the last 6 years. If that continues, we won't have to worry about it because we won't be able to fund education properly.
We also asked Engler about other issues that he is currently working on that affects our area.
Well, you know, one of the things that affects your area is the Doe Run settlement. Two things. We overrode the governor's veto on 2 bills that the trial attorneys were working on. One of them was that if you're an uninsured motorist, you're illegally driving with no insurance, and you get hit, then you can only sue the person that hit you to repair your car and your medical. You can't sue them for future damages. That's one huge thing. And the other one was Doe Run. We've been suing Doe Run for these chat piles down here, where the people are saying that they got sick living next to them, and that they've moved the court cases to City of St. Louis, where they're getting unlimited verdicts. And we put a cap on the punitive damage of $2.5 million so that the company would stay in business, so that the 1,600 jobs that are in this area stay intact.
The St. Louis Cardinals are nearing the clinching of a playoff spot. Make sure to check out the Black Knight Sports Report for more details on the Cardinals, along with all school, local, and national sports news.
Coming up after the break, an update on the issues in Syria and the newest technology released by rivals Apple and Android.
There's no place like home.
Getting home safely is just a click away. But making sure your child is in the right seat is just one of the steps down the road to safer travels.
I don't know how it works.
Find the right seat for your little one's age and size.
We've done what you told us.
There's no better way to get home safely. Know for sure that your child is in the right seat. Get all the facts at safercar.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
All right, I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's gonna do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Continued coverage on issues in Syria reached a positive note as U.S. and Russia reached an agreement last weekend on a framework to destroy all of Syria's chemical weapons by 2014. This came soon after videos were released showing some of the chemical weapons used on civilians in Syria by their own government.
Also in national news, Colorado floods have continued to claim lives over the past week as more than 100 have been unaccounted for. The waters have cut off several houses and relief efforts have been difficult because of how widespread the flooding has been.
Apple has recently released 2 new iPhones, the 5C and the 5S. The iPhone 5C can be in white, green, blue, yellow, and pink, while the 5S will be available in gold, silver, and space gray. One of the most talked about features for the iPhone 5S have been the new fingerprint identity sensor that will take away finger swipe codes or number codes to lock your phone.
To keep pace with the new iOS 7 updates coming to iPhones, Android announced their next update this week. While the updates for Androids have always been based on a variety of sweets such as Jelly Bean, Ice Cream Sandwich, and Honeycomb, the newest Android has been labeled Kit Kat and is the 19th update of the system since it launched in September of 2008.
While the video game industry has been in a decline over the past several years, a lift could be on the horizon starting with this week's release of Grand Theft Auto 5. Batman Origins will follow this fall, and then the release of the PS4 and Xbox One in back-to-back weeks is expected to flip the video game market around.
Students have been buzzing this week about the #1 movie at the box office, Insidious 2. With all of the talk, the movie is unlikely to see a drop at the office as Prisoners, Battle of the Year, and Wizard of Oz in 3D are the main films that are released this week. As our featured movie of the week, let's take a closer look at Insidious 2.
Also in movie news, the Harry Potter series may have renewed life after author J.K. Rowling signed on for another set of films based on the world of Harry Potter. While the story will not be about Potter or his family, the story will be focused on Fantastic Beasts and where to find them. That is the spin-off of the hit series.
Celebrating movies and television, the Emmy Awards will be held this weekend. A few smaller Emmys were handed out last weekend and feature the best guest appearance role by Bob Newhart on The Big Bang Theory last season.
It's really you.
Mr. Jeffries, I am so sorry. We should have told you about the broken elevator.
I agree.
Professor Proton, it's an honor to meet you.
Just call me Arthur.
Leonard. Did you hear that? Professor Proton said I should call him Arthur. But that means we're friends.
No, a friend would have told me about the elevator.
Speaking of The Big Bang Theory, several shows will be premiering over the next 2 weeks. Sleepy Hollow made its premiere on Fox this Monday, while several shows will make their premiere next week. Top shows include The Voice on Monday, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on Tuesday, Law & Order SVU on Wednesday, and The Big Bang Theory on Thursday.
That's all for this edition of Black Knight News. I am Maddie Bradley.
And I am Madison Brown. Thank you for watching and have a great weekend.